Hey guys, this is DFD, aka Dark Frozen Depths, and this is going to be another video about the Union Raid event, which should have started, I think. I mean, they did mention maintenance on the 20th, and that's the date now says the 21st. But yeah, we're going to have to go over some more stuff that's been added. That's why I'm again redoing this. This is probably the last time I have to do this for Gluttony. So that's the whole thing. But before we even get into that, if you've seen my previous video, I've gotten this Kamihime right here. We're going to take a quick look at her and what she does, because she's actually a lot better than you would think. That's probably the reason why she's a key Kamihime. But one quick little thing before I even start. Now, those of you that have probably seen some videos of it, I've been creating a game called Crisscross Chronicles, and this one's called Crisscross Chronicles Eclipse Trio. But the thing about that is the fact that I practically am ready to release a demo. I just don't want to until later on. But I can guarantee for a fact, demo of it's going to be out playable by October 7th. So that's the latest date you'll see for release. And I'm going to release whatever I got in there. I'm just trying to add more stuff before that release date. But definitely look forward to it. It's going to be playable on, it should be playable on both Windows and Mac, as well as Android and iPhone. I'm trying to see what I can do with, when it gets rendered, and I'll have to try and test play it and see how things go. But, yeah, look forward to it. It's finally happening. And don't expect another demo for a long time. I'll probably just update the old one, maybe once or twice to get some things fixed up. But, anyways, getting on to what you really came here for. Chernabog, gonna quickly go over what she does. I'm still in the process of leveling her so she can at least get our level 45 skill, because that's the bread and butter of what she is. And I've been asked a couple of questions on what she does. There's other people that was definitely looking forward to her, so anyways, the first skill reduces the enemy's mode gauge, meaning if they're enraging, they'll make it lower. Increases her own burst gauge up. Now, I think it's a 20% mode gauge drop and 30 bursts to herself, but I gotta double check the thing. This next one deals dark damage. It's not that much. I honestly thought it would have been more. But she also increases her combo rate. This is the main reason why she gets this. It says status greatly up when she's under the effects of the skill. And you can recast it as long as you can do one thing and one thing alone, and that combines with the assist ability. Make sure she has 15 burst gauge every turn. If you don't have her third skill in effect, then you don't have to worry about it. But as long as it's in effect, you need at least 15 bursts on her. It's honestly a little bit easier than you think, but it's probably not guaranteed. But anyways, getting into what the moves actually do. Yeah, the raging gauge drops by 30%. Okay, and the burst gauge increases by 30. So that's the thing about that. Now, I don't know the full boost in the combo thing, but it does increase both double and triple rates, so that's something to know. Her self buff is where she gets a lot of her power. That's why you want this. Assault plus 150. That means her regular attack power is 2.5 times stronger. Her defense doubles because it's plus 100%. From what it's saying, that the probability increase for her combos, I think it's a total of 50% if I'm reading this right. So she's got a 50% rate to do double or triple if you add them up. And then she gets 500 HP back per turn. And considering that this lasts 10 turns and its cooldown is 10 turns, you can consistently sustain it as long as you have 15 burst gauge every turn. Because it will eat away 15 every single turn. So if you have 14 or less, it's going to wear off. So that said, keep your burst gauge up on this girl. Like, the only time you probably should see it turn off is if you did a full burst or something like that. Even then, you might get lucky, see her take some damage, and then actually get the burst gauge back up enough. Who knows? But all I know is this. This is the reason why you want her. I mean, let's face it. She's doing more than double damage. She's taking probably about half damage. And she recovers more HP per turn than any other skill I've seen so far. I think the highest was 400 from Gaia, which was a party-wide one, but still. So she can sustain herself. She can deal a lot of damage. That said, easily put her in one of your front two slots. Probably the first slot you get. And just let her go to town. But you definitely need to get her level 45. All I gotta say for that. Now, going into the actual event, because honestly, I might test this out with my dark team anyway, even though my win team's up to snuff. It's the same as before. Union raid. You can get some help from others for the Willem fights, but it's honestly recommended just to invite your guild members, because that way you'll get more grails per fight. Because every single union member that participates gains grails, and it's all just going to the pool anyway. So, say like you would normally get 3 grails from that fight. Like, assuming everybody gets the same amount, you could get 3. Another union member that jumps in would also get 3. So instead of a total of 3, you got 6 right there. More jump in, more grails. That's the best strategy for grail building. Just invite your union members. Don't even put it to friends and random people. But when it comes to the demon fights, you're stuck with your union members anyway. So if you aren't part of a union, then you're going to have a really tough time trying to build up some stuff for this. Especially considering that this is the only means of getting holy soul points. So that the characters like Morgan and Shingen, you're not getting them unless you get a lot of holy soul points. And the whole thing about Morgan too is the fact that I don't know if they changed what her rampaging buff does, but her weapon definitely helps out with it, so she's actually kind of usable if you wanted a little bit of a rampaging build. But Shingen's definitely one of the ones that people aim for a lot, so that's one thing. Now, going over the basic stuff again, Willems have a set amount of power. This one's going to end up doing a lot of burst gauge reduction, so you got to be careful about that. So watch out for her raging attacks no matter how easy she is. But she's going to hit one person for a lot of damage in standard. In her expert fight, she's going to randomly hit 8 times. That can be very dangerous. So be careful about her normal raging move on that one too. But when it comes to her normal burst move. But her raging burst is going to hit everybody and then reduce their burst gauge. 17 burst gauge in standard, 20 in expert. So it's going to take a nice little chunk out of your burst if you get hit with that. But quite frankly, I would rather deal with the raging one than the normal one when it comes to the expert fight, because getting hit randomly 8 times, easy way to see somebody get killed off. Now, demon fights, they of course get stronger each time you defeat them, and they'll reset after the day reset, so it'll go back to level 1. But same typical stuff as before. It's pretty much beat them, they'll get stronger and stronger and stronger until you eventually hit a point where you can't do it. But there's been cases where I've seen like images or possibly even videos of expert fights going to like level 1000, ultimate going insanely high levels too. It's possible. You just need to be built up very strong and have a really good union. And then there's a few strategies you could probably take as well. I know one of them I would probably try to do if you can. But here's the whole thing about these fights. And you're going to definitely do both of them if you want to do the rankings. Expert, the normal burst will hit one person. And then it will also help her recover. So, that said, if you have anybody that prevents recovery, or the one Kamihime that actually can put zombie and make it the healing turn into damage, that can help. And I keep forgetting her name, but I know she's an R Dark one, and I think she's in the gym gacha. But that's the whole thing. If you want to try and help mitigate that HP recovery, then you can do that. I wouldn't worry about it too much, though. It's on expert, it's a normal nuke, it's not too bad, really. It's like a little bit of healing is not going to offset you unless it's in some very difficult content, like, say, Guild Order, where they're healing like hundreds of thousands. But Raging Nuke is going to hit everybody. You're going to see your defense drop. I think it says about 50% increase, so I don't know if the damage you take is going to go up by 50%, or if your damage is going to be double because your defense got cut in half. Either way, it looks like it's going to build up her defense and lower yours. So you might want some status resistance or status removal. I don't know, but just be wary of that. Honestly, with how fast the mode gauge can change on expert fights, if you're strong enough, you're probably not going to have to worry about it too much, because you can easily flip back between normal and raging. Now, in Ultimate's a different story. You might or might not be strong enough to pull that off, but Ultimate, normal burst is going to hit everybody, reduce their attack, and build up her attack power. This is where removing buffs is really going to come into play, because that's kind of dangerous. But at the same time, the Raging one's going to sit and do the same thing, only for combo rate. So, either way, you're going to want to try to avoid the burst moves as much as possible. So, trying to get some orb maintenance, maybe. Definitely try to get some buff removal. Be quite honest, this is more situated for my white team than my win team, given that. But my win team's still pretty strong, so I'm probably going to end up using them anyways. But that's the whole thing with that. You really need some buff control. Some buff and debuff control. That's the biggest thing about the demon fights. The Wilhelm fights is more burst control. Now, of course, you got the normal stuff too, where it's like, you get achievements and whatnot. This is pretty much the estimated number to get all the rewards from the achievement tables, which is 3 million individual, 60 million for your union, that's participation points, 150 expert kills, 400 ultimate kills. If you're doing rankings, don't even worry about this, because this stuff's probably going to come naturally. There's been a lot of times where my union has actually been trying to get into the rankings a decent amount. So we really racked up a lot of these points, and we pretty much knocked out most, if not all, the lists, just by trying that. So, this is more for the ones that aren't really trying to participate in the rankings, where they're like casually just killing off the demons. But that's the whole thing with that. But this is actually the legit ranking table I'm looking at right here. And there is 2 SSR weapons in here. This is going to be the official one for all the union raids from the looks of things now. Because we got, like, final weapon break and all that. So that's the one thing to know about. So you're definitely going to want to go pretty far in the list in order to get these things. I mean, you need 30 million just for the, for one of the weapon copies. You need, like, 1 million in your own for, another copy. You do want to go after these weapons to an extent, because I'm pretty sure they got some very good stuff, actually. Now, looking at this, I can't really tell what this says means by key point, but that's going to be the final break ability for the gun, which is a pride weapon. I don't know if they changed it, because it just says attack power up large. I don't know if it really changed anything. And then there's a Thunder Spear too. So it's looking like we're going to have 2 assault weapons right there out the gate, because pride weapons still count as assault. They just count as a small assault. But they'll give you bonus damage as you go along. They're starting to become more worthwhile now that they can final break. So we're going to look into what these 2 weapons do when they get their final breaks. But from the get-go, you're seeing 2 assault weapons. Go after them. If you still need more on top of that, there's an SR assault in there as well. This is a good chance to get a lot of grails for skill leveling. I know my white grid's good on it. My other grids aren't. I'm definitely going to need these grails. When it comes to the the Liliums as Adolins, never ever set them as a main unless you absolutely have nothing else. Even then, you're probably going to find better pretty quickly. Even if you're farming for assault weapons, you'll probably see you a couple of the disasters that drop, and they're honestly better than these. Even the SR Dragoons are probably better than these. But the thing is, they do have some decent buffs. And then on top of that too, now that we have the introduction of Monogarmer and Anubis, you probably do want to start like keeping matching element Adolins just in case. And these are good candidates because they have a buff made for that element. 2 of them, in fact. And we do have a few Adolins in there that already do it from events. Like, I know there's one, I think it's Ilionkus, but it was like a 50% increase provided that your entire Idolin deck is water. Well, at least the sub slot's not the main one. But you're still going to want her in the main one anyway. So you can get 100% elemental just by having 2 Ilionkas and a full deck of water. And guess what? There's a water Lilium. So you see where I'm going with that. Because honestly, until you start getting a lot of very good Idolins, just starting out trying to match the elements, you're probably going to end up with a Lilium, maybe an SR Dragoon, but definitely a Kaiser when you finally get enough Idolin orbs. So even if you don't choose to save the Liliums now, when it comes back around later on, probably try to save some more. But that's the whole thing. And then their buffs aren't too bad, really. The only huge drawback is their main effect when you set them as a lead, and then their stats, because HP and attack wise is pretty low. But honestly, base stats, like if you have 1 or 2 that have low base stats, that's not too much of a setback. The majority of your power comes from your weapon skills, if you really want to be honest. But that's the whole thing with that one. So you may not want to sell these off. It's up to you if you want to be honest, because it works either way. But the biggest thing is to definitely try to consider having matching element Adolins now that we have some in the game that do that. Especially if they're light or dark, because those are kind of hard to really get now that we're having events all over the place. Not to mention, I haven't really found too many that really can do it anyways. If I somehow get all the copies of Phoenix, St. Nicholas, who's probably not rolling around again, Barong, all these other light ones, it's like, I'd probably just barely hit the, hit a full deck of light ones for a Monogarmer setup, so that's the whole thing with that. And another thing that I also skipped, which is why I'm going up here, I mentioned building up grails. There's also the whole thing about using them. Right out the gate, you want 100% assault, which is the attack power increases. So you're going to spend 100 grails to that no matter what you do. It's going to double your damage. Now, from there, it's just dependent on what you might want. Another one that is very good to go after is the HP increases. Easily go for 100 of that because it's going to double your survivability. The recovery. It depends. If you have healers, and there is a couple of wind healers, but they're like, I think a few might be SSR, but I may be mistaken. I know there's definitely SR healers. But, well, technically Gaia is one, if you got her awakened and high enough. But the recovery increases will build up more power for your recovery skills, and we do have a couple of Ascension weapons, so that's going to stack with the Ascension ones. So keep that in mind. If you have a lot of HP, you may or may not want the recovery increases. It depends. You don't really need the abnormality stuff yet, because there's going to be one that will spam you with a lot of abnormal stuff, and you might need resistance. But this one, it's not too bad if you really want to be honest. You don't really need to worry about abnormal states in this. Burst damage is up to you. If you're already using Shingen, this will just add on top of that, I do believe, but there is a limit to how much burst damage increase you can get. Personally, I say get it anyways, because burst time is very good with this. And anybody that's going for the rankings definitely will be doing burst time. So, and speaking of burst, both 2-stage and 3-stage will definitely help you out because they will increase your combo rates. And quite frankly, unless it's a character like, say, Cybele, who's guaranteed to do double, then 3-stage would always be better than 2-stage in that case. 2-stage might actually make it a little bit worse in her situation, because it might try to influence the chance of her getting a triple even lower than what it is. But I haven't really heard anything confirmed about that yet. That's the whole reason why I'm still up in the air about the rush weapons. And there's a couple of add-ons that got a rush effect too, like Tiamat. But that's the whole thing with this. It's still going to help you out, because it's going to help out all your Kamihime, not just the ones that have buffs or some sort of effect where they force out double and triple. So, honestly, I'd say get it. At least the double. The triple's up to you, because it's only 10% if you max it out. But the double is a 25% increase if you max it out. Now, how much you put in each one is pretty much up to you, but things that definitely could get maxed out: attack power, burst damage, and HP. Attack power is the main priority. Always max that out as soon as possible. But other than that, it's more or less up to you at your discretion. But I can easily say don't go after the state abnormality things, because you don't really need to up your success rate. So you want more success chance, get characters like Mordred who can actually do it with Vicissitudes of Fortune. Or VOF as they call it, or VOF. But when it comes to resisting these effects, if you know what you're doing, it's not really going to help you too much getting resistance. So, but the thing is, you still may or may not want it if you don't feel that safe. Again, that's up to you, but I wouldn't do it. And it could be difficult to get a 400 grails a day, but like I said, if you're inviting each other to each other's Willem raids, then it's not going to be too much of a problem. Like I said, if you get, like, say, 3 people and an expert Willem raid, that's a chance of 15 grails right there. So try to get your own union members in the same raids like that. That will greatly help you out. And speaking of the rankings, it's the same normal stuff that they have down there too. Where the higher you get in the expert kills, the more grails you'll tend to get. But you'll still get like 1,000, up to 1,000 magic jewels just from that one. You tend to get a lot of Dragonic Eye Shards from the ultimate kills. Do as many of those as you can, because the most you can get is 15. That's 1.5 Dragonic Eyes right there, along with up to another 1,000 magic jewels. And on the individual, where you have to build up your own participation points, you can start getting a lot of magic jewels from that, up to 3,000. So, say you got 5th place or higher in all 3. That is 5,000 magic jewels, 15 Dragonic Eye Shards, 15 R Grails, and 5 SR Grails. That's a lot. Either way, you're going to get magic jewels just for pretty much participating. So, do as best you can on that. Especially considering the fact that now we're going to get into a little bit of strategies with some stuff too, because raids that tend to rank high definitely have a few things that they keep in mind. Trying to burn out all the grails, like they might save up grails for like a specific day when a lot more people are on to just go grinding out raids. That's a very valid strategy. I've done it myself. Having a lot of people on doing burst time to just nuke the bosses into oblivion, that really builds up a lot of kill count too. Another interesting little thing that they also mentioned before, characters like Thor and Balor, they have abilities where it forces the enemy not to have a turn. You might be able to pull this off with Hypnos, because the sleep does the same thing, but when something gets hit with sleep, there's a chance it might wake up. But that's the whole thing. Using effects that prevent any and all action from an enemy, spamming those back to back between union members will definitely help that out. And Awakened Thor is definitely great for that. You just need to get it to stick, and that's where you might actually want the success rate on debuff probability, but it's not going to help too much if you really want to be honest. I mean, it still does help, but it's just a small amount of chance it will add to it. I don't know the full details of it, but from what I've heard, it doesn't affect things too much. You're better off using vicissitudes, and even accessories might help too, but those are kind of rare. And I say might because it's still low chances off of those too. But the biggest thing is definitely try to back-to-back spam stuff like Paralyze, Sleep, stuff like that. If we had access to it, stuff that would turn you to stone would definitely prevent turns. Definitely try to get Dizzy in there. And as a failsafe, Blind, because of the fact that it's got a good chance of making sure you don't get hit with something hard. Unless it's a burst move. So that's the whole thing with that type of strategy. Like status effects, definitely the Paralyze one. But considering that the majority of those come from SR or SSR Kamihime, you may not have the right teams for that. So who knows? But keep in mind, if you get Thors to go back to back and she's awakened, then that's 30 seconds to just do whatever. Then after 30 seconds pass, somebody else can do it, and then keep it going. You can end up having the whole fight not even getting attacked once. That's how powerful that can be. You just need to help make sure the stuff sticks. Now, last thing I'm going over is definitely what these weapons do. Starting off with the Frag Gun. Because I don't know if they changed it on this one. If they did, it was an update. Nope, they didn't change it. So, here's what this does. From the Stinger part, sounds like it's got the critical rate chance. I don't know. Because I'm trying to see what that actually does. Yeah, it seems like it's a low chance of it, but Stinger seems like it's the critical effect. I'd have to go check that out for more info, but definitely the Pride's still there. And now that we can get Final Break, that means skill level 30 is possible. So, when you Final Break, it'll add the Stinger effect, and then on top of that, it'll allow you to go from skill level 20 to skill level 30. So Stinger's already coming in at skill level 20. Because one of the pre-requirements of Final Break is to max out skill level. So, you'll automatically at that point have 10% assault from Pride, and then it can go up to 30% for when your HP gets really low, like 5% remaining. And then you got Stinger at whatever it is for level 20. Then you can push it up to 30, and hey, your Pride goes anywhere between, I think, 15% to 35%. And then Stinger does whatever it does. We're about to find out what it does right now, but that's the whole thing with it. This stuff really helps it. And no, not right now. We got another weapon to check, but Final Break definitely does seem like it's kind of worth it now. Again, it's still up to you, because honestly, the Union ones are the cheapest to build up, but who knows. Now, the Spear is the one I'm more interested in because it's a new one. And it's already quite strong. Even if you don't Final Break it, 2400 attack power is very high. But here's what this does. It's a straight up assault. A large assault. Get those. Always worth it. If you can Final Break it, it gets an Exceed, which increases your burst damage. It's like more stuff, more burst damage on top of what Shingen can do with Provisional Forest, or what you might have with the Grail buffs. Always a good thing, really. Because this one's going to be permanent, as long as it's in your grid. That's something that's always welcome. Exceed weapons, they're highly valued too, from what I can tell. Assault, Exceed, and Defender. Top 3 picks for weapons. If you want to add a 4th one in there, Barrage, where you got your triple rate increase, but it's very, very small. But that's another thing to really pay attention to. We're starting to get Exceed weapons as well. We're starting to get a lot of interesting little effects, so try to look into what the weapons do, and there you go from there. Now, we're going into skill effect real quick, just to try and figure out what that Stinger does. Because I've done a video on it, but I don't remember everything. But yeah, here's pretty much numbers for Pride. It's like, we're going to get the large assault version of Pride. 15% base attack power. So it's almost as much as a large assault at level 20. But you get up to another 20% basically when your remaining HP gets really low. So you got practically 35%. It says 19 right there for actual numbers, but again, that's a lot of power when your HP gets low, even without it. Pride weapons are starting to look very worth it now. Rush's double chance. They say the village on this, but it's actually exceed. Okay, yes, Stinger. It definitely is critical, so that makes it even more worth it. Because that's what Stinger basically is. It says sneak attack probability. This translates to critical. Because if you remember how I mentioned in previous videos before, I have Nephthys who has a critical increase. I think Cybele has one too, if you have SSR Cybele. What this does, it's a small chance of critical actually landing. But when it does, your damage goes way up. I think it doubles it, but I'm not fully sure. It's definitely a very high increase. But it adds a percentage chance where you might hit very, very hard. To put that in perspective, it makes Nephthys' ability nuke, without stun factored in and all that, from what I've got so far, jump up from, say, 150,000 to maybe 200,000 to anywhere between 300,000 to 400,000. It's practically doubling her damage. When you start getting really high numbers, it starts adding up. Because I've seen on JP side, there's people that's gotten their grades and stuff so powered up that they're doing hundreds of thousands of damage with normal attacks. So Stinger on top of that would just double it to 200,000. So imagine going a round full of attacks and nobody had anything special but Stinger landed. You did 1,000,000 damage with normal hits at that point. So yeah, Stinger, worth it. I just don't know what the full damage numbers is. But if this rate is actually there for what it says, then you take the skill level times 0.5, just like the normal stuff, and then do 0% for small, 3% for big, and 6% for 3% for medium and 6% for large. So going back, because I do believe that's a small Stinger, that means you should get 15% chance of doing that just off that weapon alone. Yeah, it's small. So skill level 30, you can get up to 15% chance of getting a critical hit. And remember, these events are going to repeat, so honestly, I'd probably get a lot of these weapons if you can. So that said, definitely try to get that weapon. This is what I mean by some of the Pride weapons actually becoming very, very, very strong. Because I don't know if it works on bursts, but it definitely works on abilities. So keep that in mind. Anyways, that's all for this video. No guarantees if I slip and do a Union Raid video, but I might. Just to show off what my win team's doing, because of the fact that I'm near the point of the meta for burst teams for win. I have Kuchulain, Cybele and Luis, who's SSR Cybele, Shingen, Hastor, and Win Romuel. Replace Win Romuel with Awakened Titania. That would be the meta. And even then, Win Romuel got some very nice burst generation, so I may not even need Titania. So I can spam a lot of Provisional Force bursts very nicely with that team. I just need to build up their assault, which I think is somewhere around 50 or 60%. But that's the whole thing with that team. It's very strong. Like, even if you got Wind Orpheus, like, she was originally light, but she's wind in that one. She's got a little bit of burst generation too. And it comes from enthusiasm, which also, if you have Jack-o'-lantern from Dark add-ons, then that would just add on to that. So, again, it's a thought. But anyways, that's all I got for this video, guys. More Kamihime projects still definitely coming soon, because I think I still have time to actually do a video for Kazukato's Guild Order, because I haven't done that yet. But anyways, that's all I got for this video, guys. Take care.